It's a brand new week. Welcome to its first episode of the Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvogo, and on the show tonight, Contradictions swirl at the start of Cosatu's four-day Congress as the leadership throws its weight behind the ANC, only for the delegates to block the governing party's chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, from addressing them. We look at the state of the country's leading labor federation. Chaos and confusion in the city of Tshwane as the municipality fails to pay its workers. What's going on? We speak to the MMC of Finance. Government is under pressure to fix Eskom, but is searching for a new or revamped board where they should be looking for. We examine that with an analyst. And political leaders and activists pay tribute to the late Winnie Mandela, who would have turned 86 today. All that coming up in tonight's episode of The Watchdog, coming to you live from the SABC's Auckland Park studios here in Johannesburg. A dramatic start to Labour Federation Cosatu's elective Congress as workers today booed and blocked ANC chairperson Gwede Mantashe from addressing them on behalf of their alliance partner. Sins from the Cosatu Congress earlier, as soon as Gwede Mantashe was ready to address that Cosatu Congress on behalf of the ANC. Now, earlier in her opening address, Cosatu President Zingiswa Losi had gone into detail tracing the history of the alliance and its problems, as well as why, as the leadership, they felt that, or they still feel that that relationship should in fact be strengthened.
If we are to advance the working class struggles, then we must defend our movement. It is not by accident that Cosatu and its predecessor SABC have been part of this alliance. Workers deliberated on joining the alliance at lengthy discussions. The alliance, like many marriages, has its ups and downs. However, with all its challenges, it remains the best vehicle to advance the struggle of workers. Comrades, the ANC and the SACP, with all of their challenges, their strengths and their weaknesses, they remain the most progressive and relevant political formation to drive the demands of the working class. So we shouldn't be fooled by peacetime slogans of the opposition parties. Because, comrades, these opposition parties, they were nowhere to be seen when workers had to go and strike in Durban in 1973, or when Cosatu House was bombed in 1987, nor when the UDF was banned. The very same opposition parties have consistently, when they are campaigning, voted against our progressive laws in Parliament. This is what they have promised us. They have promised to repeal our progressive laws if they are to be elected in government. They have stated unambiguously that they will scrap the minimum wage. They will end collective bargaining. They will remove protection from unfair dismissal. They will slash the salaries of and retrench public servants and sell all SOEs. Indeed, we must admit in this Congress that the African National Congress is not perfect. It has made serious mistakes. It is battling to cleanse itself of the demons of corruption and factionalism. It is contested by various class forces in it. Yet, it has stood with Cosatu when we demanded the constitutional enshrinement of workers' rights, the passing of our labor laws, and many other progressive laws. Now, what is our task as members of the Federation? Our task, comrade, is to defend workers' hard-won victories.
Cosatu President Zingiswa Lusi giving an opening address at that Congress earlier today. That, of course, was before the workers decided to boo and stop ANC chairperson Gwede Mantashe from delivering a message on behalf of the ANC. So, could today have marked the beginning of the end of that relationship between Cosatu and the ANC? Or is it just another day in the often rocky relationship between the two? Well, on the line, I do have analyst Dr. Ibrahim Harvey, who's going to help us navigate these waters this evening. I must but also say that we were supposed to be joined by Cosatu General Secretary, Bheki Njalinjali, who only informed us literally a minute before we went to air that he is no longer allowed to come on the program this evening. We don't know what the reason is for that, but we will, of course, hopefully establish why they decided to make that about 10. But we had agreed much earlier today that someone would come on the program for this discussion. Dr. Harvey, good evening. Thank you very much for your time. You've come to our rescue. We would have been in deep trouble if we had relied solely on Cosatu to come on. But what do you make of that incident that continues, of course, to hawk the headlines? Gwede Mantashe being disallowed by workers to address this Congress.
Yes, Vio, thanks for this opportunity to talk to you about what happened today. No, I think, it's very clear, probably the most politically embarrassing moment in Gwede Mantashe's political life, what happened today. I think it clearly indicates that things are coming to a head. You know, we are dealing with the very worst socio-economic and political crisis in the entire history of South Africa, I argue. And particularly, we never expected that this would happen in a post-apartheid South Africa 28 years later. But, you know, over two decades ago, I've argued consistently, particularly when I was a columnist for the Mail and Guardian, this alliance is doomed. Cosatu has been abused so often. I said how much they were suckers for punishment, returning the ANC to power every time, and the way they've been treated and abused by the ANC, and that relationship continued. The reason why, qualitatively speaking, you're sitting with a very different crisis and developments today. You know, only last week, the public sector wage negotiations reached a deadlock again. You can see there's a looming public sector strike going on. Only last year did the ANC renege on a public sector wage agreement of 2018. A whole lot of attacks and setbacks have occurred within this crisis-ridden moment in South Africa. This particular conjuncture that we inhabit right now has never been so bad before. I mean, you know, there's 11, 12 million people unemployed, children going to bed hungry, millions of people, malnutrition, hunger, poverty across the length and breadth of South Africa. And go and see how Cosatu itself has declined, particularly since it, you know, in a moment of madness, went to go and expel its biggest affiliate, the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, in 2014 and expelled its General Secretary, Vavi. The biggest mistakes ever made by Cosatu since it was born in 1985, I argue.
In fact, I mean, you've raised so many issues within such a short space of time, and I want to take you back to some of the, what's the point or the reason which shows that the particular soundbite we played earlier, where Zingiswa Losi was talking about, you know, this relationship, where it's coming from, and essentially accusing opposition parties, interestingly, of being the ones who will, if they were, you know, to take over, betray Cosatu, and forgetting all the things that you have actually just mentioned. The fact that it is now the ANC government, you know, that has reneged, as you say, on the on the wage agreement based on the need to, they say, you know, arrest the wage bill. It is actually Cosatu that has been saying that the government is hell-bent on selling state-owned enterprises, and they must be stopped from doing that. But on the same note, says that she reckons the ANC continues to be the best vehicle to secure, you know, worker victories.
No, man, that argument is inherently deeply problematic, false, and perhaps even hypocritical. Let me tell you what is the problem. You know, the reason why is Zwelenzima Vavi, who I know fairly well. He said repeatedly, Ibrahim, they tried to get me onto the NEC of the ANC. The ANC captured Cosatu long ago. Let me tell you, there's a reason why, how the ANC operates. That's why you see Bladen Zemande in the cabinet, Jeremy Cronin, and now Losi in the NEC of the ANC. Once you are there, the pressures you are under are sustained. There's no way. That is the reason why she speaks. And you know what? When you speak of a betrayal of Cosatu, you don't have to talk about the opposition. The opposition has got nothing to do with the thrust of this betrayal and treachery. Has been committed by the ruling party. The ANC has been in power. And Cosatu has been the labor ally of the ANC in office. Now, let me give you a few things quickly. And I'm not surprised that the General Secretary didn't pitch up. Not at all. I don't want to use this platform now to speak about certain things. I mean, that he was going to have been in a discussion debate with me. I'm not surprised at all that he never pitched. But she must ask herself, the president of Cosatu, if this is how she describes the ANC, you know, it's not a perfect organization. Why is it that Cosatu workers are more unhappy today about? That's precisely why the treatment of Gwede happens today. And on the first day of a Cosatu Congress, it's never happened before, but it speaks volumes about what is happening. In fact, the president is herself moving leftward at times because she's under immense pressure from the ordinary rank and file of Cosatu, who has for a long time been moving, because they're impatient with the ANC, increasingly leftward. And you can see this, and even talks about the possible reunification with Vavi Saftu, which is what I think really is needed. But how can you have the worst ever poverty, unemployment, raging social inequalities? Never has it been as bad as it is today, even during, it's painful. It's incredible for me to have to tell you that we have the worst poverty, unemployment, and social inequalities that we ever had. In fact, considerably worse than they were under apartheid. Now, how does the president of Cosatu answer that question? How is it that the ANC has done this good job, represented the interests of the black working class? You must remember, historically has been the backbone of the ANC. From the time of its formation, the black urban working class in particular has been the backbone. And it is this very class, Vuyo, that the ANC has betrayed repeatedly. And now you can see what is happening today, I think, because everything is coming to a head. Those workers today refusing Gwede to speak, which I think, however, was tactically wrong. I argued on TV this afternoon that what should have happened, they should have allowed him to speak, Vuyo. Then they could have raised as sharply as they wanted to all the relevant questions that they threw at him. It was their Congress. He would have been, absolutely would have had to answer those questions. So tactically, I think they made a mistake to refuse to allow him to speak. But the fact that it happened tells you without a shred of doubt that things are coming to a head now. Okay. And in fact, Losi herself is moving more leftward because she's being pushed. This is it. They're getting massive pressure from the rank and file, to say, how can this relationship is untenable with this is supposed to be the ruling party. This is supposed to be the party that represents the interests and needs of the working class. I mean, how can that be true if the workers in Cosatu and generally in this country are in the worst situation they've ever been in post-apartheid South Africa? You don't need to be a social political scientist. Average intelligence will tell you it's a lot of nonsense. She's being unnecessarily defensive about the ANC. What has happened to the Eskom crisis? They cannot even pay its own bloody staff. And Cosatu is 2 kilometers away from the head office of the ANC. Vuyo, did you see them wage marches demanding the workers, the staff of Cosatu be paid? The Eskom crisis, they're 2 kilometers away. I mean, really, this Cosatu have failed the working class. I'm telling you, they have failed the working class, and their own members are getting fed up now, and it exploded at today's Cosatu Congress in the first day.
In fact, I want us to listen to what Gwede Mantashe himself had to say on the back of what happened. And this, of course, as I bring in Ongama Mtimka into this conversation as well. Let's take a listen, Dr. Harvey, to what Gwede had to say for himself when journalists confronted him following the chaos that ensued before he was supposed to speak.
If they were rejecting the ANC, they would first not invite us here. Okay, we're invited here. That is not rejection. If they want to disrupt the speech of the ANC, that's a different matter. It's a statement they're making, and we must listen to that statement.
Ongama Mtimka, welcome. Gwede Mantashe says it's not a rejection of the ANC because, he says, they were invited here. And I'm going to take you back where I started with Dr. Harvey, which was that before that incident happened, Zingisa Losi had spoken at length about the relationship between the alliance partners, but then ended by saying, in spite of all the problems they were having, she still reckons that the ANC is still the best vehicle to drive worker demands. She then went on and on to talk about how the opposition was actually bad and why they shouldn't even listen to the opposition. You now have Gwede saying this is not a rejection of the ANC, yet the action that those workers took there showed, in no uncertain terms, that that is in fact what happened. The opposite of what Gwede Mantashe was saying is actually what happened. They were making a very important statement. I don't know if you listened to Dr. Harvey earlier, but I'm keen to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so I think the first manifestation of the protest against Gwede Mantashe speaking at the event appeared to me as one, not the usual conference politicking, in terms of which a particular leader of the party is being rejected personally because there's a wave of support that's changed. I agree with your guest that, in fact, this is about the ANC, and in fact disagree with Mr. Mantashe that this is done by what seemed to me to be closer to rank and file membership of the party than the elites, the union elites, who are sensitive to questions of political strategy and what's called political unionism. And this has always been a tension within the labor movement, Bravuyo, where even at debates within Cosatu, the question was asked there about the extent to which you could have this politically oriented unionism, or political unionism as it was called, because the argument was that workers, while they are citizens in general, they have got shop floor issues which they need their unions to focus on. However, there was realization also that the workers actually needed to be more aware of the broader politics of the country because they were citizens before they were workers. So the choice then was for this, political unionism. In the democratic period, there's been a long debate going on about the benefits and the disadvantages of it. And no less than many of the leaders and the secretary generals of the unions have recognized the trappings that being in cahoots with the ANC or in an alliance with the ANC have when it comes to shop floor issues, that it has tended, while it has been an effective opposition within the ANC and helps keep the ANC in check, shop floor issues have suffered. And I think that what we saw today is the crystallization of the differences between how the union elites see the strategic nature of continued relations with the ANC and how those that are closer to rank and file membership are experiencing it and in fact, expressed that disavowal. You may be right that they may have been invited, but they're invited by the union elites. And what we saw there was an impression of how the rank and file membership are feeling about the relationship with the ANC at this stage.
Dr. Harvey, one of the mantras of Cosatu's mantras, back in the day was that you cannot, which is why they were involved in social struggles, and broadly in the anti-apartheid struggle, was that you cannot artificially divide. The life of your working class. In other words, the same worker who's exploited on the factory floor is the same worker who has to trudge home to inhumane living conditions. And that kept it going and being this a very important force in the fight against apartheid. Is that irrelevant in modern day South Africa?
No, it's not only that it's not irrelevant. It's that it's far more relevant today and pronounced than ever before. So you're dealing basically with the questions of race and class. And we've seen throughout the history of South Africa, we've had a deepening articulation of race and class in post-apartheid South Africa. And primarily because, Vio, what happened to the RDP? Please tell me. What happened to the Freedom Charter? The ANC wants to talk about a renewal. It has never told its members and supporters where the RDP is. Why was the office closed? Where's the Freedom Charter? Where are the... Man, it's a mess for you. It's a mess. Nobody talks about these issues. But basically what you're addressing... Now since you raised it, where does COSATU's members live? Where does the supporters and membership of the ANC live? They live in the black townships, Vuyo, the worst crisis ever. You know what? We moved around in the so-called African areas during the anti-apartheid struggle days. I know the areas from Cape Town to Joburg. You know what? They were considerably better off. Who can believe that I'm telling you this? Under apartheid than they are today. Vuyo, sewage running down streets is a common sight in the townships. Children dying and falling into pit latrines. It's a total mess. The worst conditions of the roads ever in Johannesburg since Joburg was formed in 1887. You want to ask why people are getting tired? It is coming to a head, and today's dramatic expressions at the opening of the Cosatu Congress speaks volumes. In fact, you are right. It's a disgruntlement of the rank and file which is coming through today, and it came through very clearly. And unfortunately, Gwede was in the way. Gwede is trying to, placate the situation. It's a face-saving gesture, the way he plays down the whole thing. He was terribly embarrassed. I know him well, and I can tell you the worst moment of his political career was what happened to him today. The relationship between the ANC and COSATU, I believe, is going to never be the same again after today. For over 2 decades, I have penned many columns and articles. What is COSATU doing in this alliance? Where it has been so terribly abused, little more than cannon fodder from 1994. And finally, perhaps in the interest of its members, and the broader black working class in particular, it's waking up, and it's taking a stand. I hope it's consistent. And this is, but one thing I noticed today, the public sector unions of COSATU is in the forefront of the emerging militancy in the Federation. And why? You look at the ANC reneging last year on the 2018 public sector wage agreement. Last week, again, a deadlock, a looming public sector strike again on the cards. I mean, those workers started with 10%, they down to 3%, and the ANC would not offer anything further than 3%. So the public sector worker discontent is deeply embedded in this emerging militancy that you can see in COSATU. I'm just hoping that it leads to ultimately to a reunification of COSATU with SAFTU, which is what I think SAFTU itself wants. Although NUMSA seems to be saying different things, that it will never go back to COSATU, But I think ideally, when you talk about the unity of the working class, at least the organized working class, we need to see the reunification of COSATU and SAFTU.
Ongama, do you think it's even possible, and I'm basing this on what Zingiswa Losi said when she addressed that conference in her opening address. Is it even possible? I know, as Dr. Harvey was saying, that there are people who have expressed this sentiment who have come to appreciate the donadering between SAFTU and COSATU. They have taken on joint programs on the public sector wage issue, for example, at Eskom as well. But I don't know what your reading is of what Zingiswa Losi had to say today versus what Dr. Harvey has just spoken about the need, in other words, the need for workers to come together, forget about political parties, and really fight for their members' demands and rights, and of course those of broader society, which is in a much worse position than has been the case in recent years.
Sure. So we mustn't simplify the difficult political questions that face the left in general and trade unions in particular in South Africa. And also, we mustn't speak about the workers and worker unions in romanticized terms. Bottom line is that worker trade unions in particular that are affiliated to Cosatu and the ANC have in fact enjoyed the kleptocracy that has developed while in government. You look at, for example, the Tembisa situation, where people who fought corruption and action is being taken against management, and you find that the union is in fact among some of the people that are problematizing corrective action that's being taken. Secondly, indeed, workers have got a right to protest about the, increases that were due to them. But what kind of a parasitic country that South Africans have? That one, on the side of capital, there's an extractive mentality, which is a take mentality. And then on the side of workers, you've got people who can easily defend increases, but are contributing to the collapse of the quality of services that is being offered to South Africans in the country. So you've got to have balance. We cannot talk about the left in purely ideological terms without the self-criticism that is necessary. The public sector wage should be directly linked to the productivity of the public sector and the quality of services that South Africans are experiencing. I doubt that South Africans have got a problem with an experienced and a quality servicing public sector that is paid well if the quality of services was being provided. So South Africans are not having value for money, and then unions want to continue to defend mediocrity. So we mustn't speak about these things from a romanticized point of view. And then to your question about to what I was saying earlier about the difficult political choices that these unions have. The NUMSA went and formed the Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party. And the rhetoric that they had was along the lines that, this is the ultimate representative of workers. And it became quite clear with the results of both the Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party as well as the United Front in 2016, that workers were not simplistic in terms of how they follow the direction of union leaders. And so the union leaders do face very tough political choices as to how they should relate with the ANC. And lastly, around relationships with the ANC, I think some of the elite in Cosatu have had to be sensitive to the broader politics of the ANC, that you've got a reformist group that wants to bring about some degree of renewal and avowed constitutionalists who are facing a political threat from a grouping that are not constitutionalists, that are not pro-rule of law. So they have had to be careful in how they comment about the politics of the ANC and their relationship, lest they create a vacuum again for the anti-reform grouping to regain a foothold of the party. So you can understand that part of the proximity that Zingiswa Losi and others have towards Cyril Ramaphosa's ANC is an attempt to close ranks so that you don't have a re-emergence of avowed anti-constitutionalists regain the party. So those are difficult choices that have had to be made. But obviously, the rank and file membership is not just concerned about nursing political factions in the ANC. It's beginning to say our experience on the ground is not suggesting that we should continue to give the ANC a blank check as far as support is concerned.
Gentlemen, I hope to bring you both to the round table at the end of this on Thursday, where we will discuss these issues in greater detail, but hopefully Cosatu will be able to join us as well on that day. But let's leave it there for now. Let me thank both of you for agreeing to come on this evening. Up next, 2 months since the start of their new financial year, one of the country's biggest municipalities today didn't pay its workers. What has happened to the capital city's 44.9 billion rands budget? That's a question we're asking after the break. Scores of Tshwane metro workers woke up today to discover, to their shock and horror, that they had not been paid. Well, Peter Sasson is a city councillor and member of the mayoral committee responsible for finance. Good evening, Mr. Sutton. Thanks very much for your time. It's not the municipality, it's the bank.
That is correct, yes. We submitted all the payment files on time. We got the news this morning, and after investigation, it came to light that our banker, we bank through Absa Bank, all payments for Absa Bank was cleared, but all other payments were delayed due to the public holiday. But that was subsequently rectified, and all salaries cleared this afternoon.
What do you say to the worker who says, well, take responsibility? I don't care what your arrangements are. That's for you to, you need to ensure that I'm paid on time, and I don't, or together with my family, I don't suffer as a result. And that's what should matter. Who was ultimately responsible? That's something you take up with the bank. But to wash your hands like the Pontius Pilate of the Bible is a bit wrong.
Well, it's an interesting point you make. So let's go back to the process. The process is you have to submit the files by a certain due date, which the banks give you. We submitted those files by the due date. It was handed over to the bank. It's normally 2 days before, 2 working days before the weekend, which we've done on time, like every other month. And it was the bank's internal systems that caused the delay due to the public holiday on Saturday. It was a process out of the hands of the city. We submitted all the files on time.
Well, are there going to be consequences for them then? I mean, if you insist you're not at fault here?
Well, it's quite clear we're not at fault. We submitted all the files on time. If we submitted the files late, it would have been a different case, but we did not. Absa Bank had internal meetings today, and they will issue us a letter in that regard. Once we receive the letter, we'll communicate it further to our staff.
Okay, we'll see what comes out of that, because that will be very interesting, because, I mean, to inconvenience the workers the way they did, assuming indeed that it is them, it is just not the right thing to do. But I saw something from the ANC earlier saying you should take responsibility and not blame Absa. They say if Eskom is not paid, the municipality blames residents and the ANC. They say if the city gets junk status or gets into junk status, you blame the ANC. If there's a 26 billion rand heist, you blame the ANC instead of taking responsibility.
Well, firstly, the 26 heist is a complete lie. So yes, we do blame the ANC. There's never been a 26 billion rand heist. It's clearly just the ANC who don't understand to read reports and how to understand them. The narrative that the ANC tries to drive is that there was a 26 billion rand tender that the city wanted to issue, but that is not the case. On the second point, one just has to go back to the time in 2020 when it was the ANC specifically who placed us under and drove a narrative and pushed that we should be placed under illegal administration, which the courts later overturned. And if you go look at the facts of the matter, on the financial statements for that year, there was a 4 billion rand loss that was incurred, and National Treasury will also, allude to the fact that how the cash position deteriorated from that time. So we are in a serious liquidity problem, and we're in a liquidity problem because people don't pay their municipal accounts. And of course, the ANC also issued a statement that they will stand in the way of municipal workers trying to disconnect residents and trying to deal with illegal connections. That happened in July, but we will continue with it. So it's not a case of blaming, it's about the fact that people need to pay for what they use and they need to pay for their services, and we're collecting on that.
What's the situation now with regard to Eskom? Are you paid what?
Thank you, sir. Our Eskom bill for August was paid in full. We're now busy with the for the July. My apology. We're now busy with the Eskom with the August account. We again will fall short. We aim to pay by the end of this month, by the 30th, by the end of this week. But indications are that we most probably will not be able to settle the full amount by the end of this week. However, we are doing what we can. We have no historic debt outstanding to Eskom. It's only the current month, and we are, as we speak now, a total of about 9 days late with the payment.
Mr. Sutton, let me thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for clarifying those issues. The MMC for Finance in Tshwane, on the back of the news this morning that some of the workers in the municipality had not been paid. Now, over the past few days, several reports have suggested that plans are on track to effect major changes to the Eskom board. The changes could be effected as early as this week. But what does a board do? What should be getting a priority during this crisis? Well, Dr. Mazwe Majola is a leadership expert. Good evening, Dr. Majola. Thanks very much for your time. Your thoughts on the news that the board is one of those things getting priority. In other words, overhauling the Eskom board.
Good evening, Vuyo. I think it would be it would be grossly unfair, really, to reduce this Eskom problem to the board. Yes, you do need a complete overhaul there at Eskom. And actually, you must start with the shareholder. You must start with the minister himself, Minister Pravin Gordhan. That is the person who must fall on his sword. Because for the last 2 years, the board there has been working at half capacity. Pravin Gordhan has failed to beef up the board there for 2 years. I mean, the people who are there are experts in their own fields, but what they are short with is the strategic or engineering and technical capacity, and that is what the minister has failed to do over the last 2 years. Yes, is not. I mean, we're talking about the board members who are about 6 or 8 board members there instead of 15. So you can see that. Really, it will be just scapegoating to blame the board for all this conundrum that is happening at Eskom.
So they should be focusing on technical and capacity instead of doing or be busy with something that they should have done a long time ago, given the order of priorities, you reckon?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what you can see, that even if you analyze the board members that are there, you see that the men and women who are very, very good in their own expertise, as I'm saying that. We've got people there with PhDs, with the professors, so they know what they're doing in their own fields. But you can see that the board is bereft of engineering and that technical capacity, and that is why I'm saying the person really who must be blamed, who must fall on his sword, is the minister, because he's the shareholder, or he represents the shareholder. So he's the one who's always known for the last 2 years that the board was working at half capacity, but he's never beefed up to that. But why was he waiting? I mean, what was he waiting for? So you can see that the decisiveness and our lack thereof has been more on the shareholder side.
Well, I've been reading what the president had to say in his weekly newsletter, saying even though the anger is wholly justified, and this is indeed a crisis, but he seems to think that there's a way out. In other words, what the government is focusing on, giving a close attention to skills, experience, and capabilities at Eskom, is going to do the trick. Are you convinced?
No, we don't see really the agency that this matter deserves or requires, even from the president himself. You see a lot of analysis paralysis. There's a lot of meetings, lots of committees, structures. Of course, yes, those would be meant to assist in terms of solving the problem. But you need agency, you need decisiveness, you need action there. Really, this is the matter that should have, taking the president to giving him his sleepless night. But you can see that he's taking his own time. As I'm saying that now they are blaming the board. The board is, of course, the board in its current state. It's true that it's really lacking some technical and operational and engineering capacity that is required. But as I'm saying that if you want to overhaul, start with the minister who has failed. So the elephant in the room here is the Minister of Public Enterprise, Pravin Gordhan, who has failed to beef up the board there and to take action. So where we are now, really, you can see that it's like they are taking their own time. It's like there is no agency, which is very, very unfortunate for something that is so dear and is so important as the energy in the country. We've heard that what I think Busa reported sometimes ago that this load shedding actually is affecting the economy. As a country, we are losing about 4 billion rand a day. And I mean, really, in another country, the minister would have resigned on his volition without being pushed. If really a country is so severely affected and impacted by the area that is not improving, like his area, that is Pravin Gordhan.
Dr. Machola, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time and insights.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Now, political leaders, political parties, and activists have been paying tribute to the late Winnie Mandela, who would have turned 86 today. ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa was among them. He hailed the struggle icon as a woman of stature who never sold out during the struggle for freedom in South Africa. He says there's still a lot that can be drawn from Mandela's legacy as the country continues to strive for the betterment of the lives of all its citizens. Ramaphosa also took the opportunity to address the Eskom challenges we've just spoken about and the continuing load shedding that we have been witnessing. We leave you with that story from Abongile Dumako. Have a good night.
ANC members gathered in Soweto to remember an icon. Mama Winnie Mandela would have turned 86 years old if she was still alive. And ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa was part of the birthday celebrations of the late stalwart at her home in Soweto. He says through her suffering under the apartheid regime, more and more people are now emancipated.
She suffered in detention, she was banished, and all the things that the apartheid regime could do against an individual woman, they did against her. But Mama Winnie stood firm. She stood firm, never sold out, never weakened, and stood courageous, and she was a brave woman.
The president also had to address the elephant in the room, load shedding. He told those gathered here that government was doing all it could to ensure that load shedding was minimized.
Electricity in our country has been a problem to all of us as South Africans since 2007. And we've been working in the recent period which Eskom must be fixed.
Until such a time that a lasting solution is found, South Africans will continue to be plunged into the darkness due to rolling blackouts. Abongile Dumako, SABC News, Soweto.